My wife texted she was taking our son to the park. Hours passed, so I tracked his phone to an abandoned warehouse. Police found my son alone crying, telling me to leave before it happens again. I saw it and it was too late. When I kicked open the warehouse door, I already knew I was walking straight into hell. The smell hit first. Gasoline, sharp and thick in the cold November air. My son's phone pinged from somewhere inside, the locator app blinking on my screen. He was here, my 7-year-old boy, and so was my wife. I should have waited for the cops, but the thought of Noah crying for me, maybe hurt, maybe scared, it snapped something inside me. I went in. The flashlight beam sliced through dust and shadows. Then I heard it, small sobs echoing from the far corner. Noah! My voice cracked. I ran toward it. He was sitting on the floor, his face streaked with dirt and tears, clutching his little stuffed shark. Daddy, please go. Please! He sobbed, grabbing my arm. He said if you come, he'll do it again. Who? I asked, scanning the darkness. But I didn't need the answer. I heard footsteps on the metal catwalk above us. A familiar voice followed. A voice that once whispered, I love you in bed at night. Right on time, Ethan. I looked up. Lauren stood beside a man I knew only from the photos my investigator had shown me. Victor Moretti. He was smirking, one hand on the railing, the other holding a lighter. You shouldn't have come here, Lauren said. Her tone wasn't fearful. It was businesslike, cold. You always have to be the hero. My blood went cold. The accelerant on the floor gleamed in the light, a perfect circle surrounding where Noah and I stood. Lauren, what the hell is this? I yelled. You're scaring our son. Victor laughed. Scaring him? We're doing him a favor. You run into a burning building trying to rescue your boy. The structure collapses. Tragic accident. Wife gets a payout. The end. Noah started screaming. Lauren didn't look at him. She just whispered, I told you to sign those insurance papers, Ethan. You shouldn't have made me forge them. Something in me shattered. I grabbed Noah and sprinted for the exit. The lighter clicked. Flame hit fuel. The explosion threw me off my feet. I wrapped myself around my son as the world went white and hot. When I woke up, I was outside, half on the pavement, my shirt soaked in blood. My shoulder was on fire, ribs screaming with every breath. Noah was crying beside me, alive, somehow alive. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard sirens, distant, coming closer. And then, through the haze of smoke and pain, I saw them, Lauren and Victor, slipping out a side door, hand in hand, disappearing into the alley while the fire behind us roared. That was the moment I realized I'd never really known my wife. She didn't just cheat on me. She tried to erase me. And I swore, right there on that cracked concrete, that I would destroy both of them. Slowly, smartly, completely. Because I wasn't dead yet. 6 months earlier, my life looked perfect on paper. I was 34, a forensic accountant for a top consulting firm in Boston. I'd built my career on uncovering fraud, tracing hidden money, catching invisible crimes. I could find lies buried in spreadsheets faster than most people could read them. I lived in a renovated colonial in Newton, with my wife Lauren and our 7-year-old son, Noah. Lauren had been a paralegal when we met. Smart, funny, driven. Back then, she wanted law school, maybe even to run her own firm one day. But after Noah was born, she said she wanted to focus on being a mom. I believed her. Looking back now, I realized she was already rehearsing the role. The first crack showed up on a random Tuesday in September. I'd wrapped up an audit early and got home around 6:30, half an hour ahead of schedule. The house was too quiet. Noah's backpack was dumped by the stairs, his math homework open on the kitchen table. The oven was on, but nobody was cooking. And then I saw it, Lauren's laptop sitting on the counter, open. She never left it unlocked. At first, I told myself not to look. Privacy was sacred in our marriage. But then I saw the corner of a chat window, just a few words visible. Last night was insane. I can still taste you. My hands started shaking. The messages were months old, dozens of them. Photos, hotel names, inside jokes. The man's name was V. She'd even sent him pictures from our anniversary trip. When I scrolled up, one line hit me like a sledgehammer. Leave him. You said you would. It's complicated. Noah needs stability, and Ethan's money. I don't care about your kid or your husband's money. I want you. That was when I realized the woman I loved wasn't just cheating. She was negotiating. The garage door opened, Lauren was home. I closed the laptop so fast my fingers left a print on the screen. She walked in, carrying shopping bags, perfectly put together like she hadn't spent the afternoon betraying me. "You're home early," she said with that sweet, fake smile that used to melt me. "Finished a project early," I said, my voice steady somehow. "Where's Noah?" "At the Bransons' playdate." She came closer, kissed my cheek. I turned just enough that her lips hit my temple instead. If she noticed, she didn't show it. She cooked that night. Braised short ribs, my favorite. Guilt cooking. The kind you do when you're trying to hide something. I sat across from her at dinner, watching her laugh with Noah, her hands moving gracefully as she poured him milk and complimented his volcano project. And I thought, you've been living a double life right in front of me. After Noah went to bed, I told her I was tired and went to my office. But I didn't sleep. I sat there replaying every late-night girls' dinner, every gym trip, every phone call for work. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I knew exactly who V was and what they were planning. In my work, you don't blow the whistle until the entire case is airtight. You gather evidence. You trace every wire. You make sure when you strike, it's surgical. So that's what I decided to do with my own marriage. I met Frank Delaney 3 days later at a diner off I-95. He was an old friend from my Marine Reserve days. Built like a cinder block, silver at the temples, eyes that missed nothing. After he left the service, he became a private investigator who handled corporate surveillance. "You sure you want to do this, Ethan?" he asked, stirring his coffee. "Once you open this door, you can't close it." "I need to know," I said. "Everything. Who he is, what she's doing, if she's hiding money, everything." Frank nodded. "And the kid? Noah's the only thing that matters," I said quietly. "But if I don't protect myself, I'll lose him." He understood. He always did. Took 3 weeks. 3 long, sleepless weeks of pretending my life was normal school drop-offs, work meetings, fake smiles across the dinner table. I'd lie awake at night listening to Lauren breathe beside me, wondering if she was dreaming about him. Then Frank called. "You better come by my office." When I got there, he already had everything spread out across the desk. Photos, printouts, timelines. Her V was Victor Moretti, owner of a so-called consulting firm that was actually a front for illegal gambling, money laundering, and unlicensed fighting rings that stretched from Boston to Providence. I stared at the pictures. Men with taped fists in blood-slick warehouses, surrounded by rich men in tailored suits holding stacks of cash. And there she was, my wife, Lauren, wearing a black dress, champagne glass in hand, smiling like she was exactly where she belonged. "She's deep in it," Frank said grimly. "Keeps the books, helps move the cash. Not just an affair. She's his partner." My stomach turned. I'd spent my life chasing people like Victor Moretti. Now my own wife was one of them. Frank handed me another folder. "This is worse. She's taken out 3 life insurance policies on you in the last 6 months. Total of $4 million. 2 forged signatures. 1 lists a shell company as beneficiary." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "She's planning something," Frank said. "And she's smart enough to make it look like an accident." I sat there in silence, my pulse pounding so hard it blurred my vision. "She's been asking about workplace safety regulations," he added, "through her paralegal contacts. Fires, structural collapses, stuff that could pass for an accident." I felt sick. That night, I went home and tucked Noah into bed. He was half asleep when he asked, "Dad, if something bad happened, you'd still come find me, right? No matter what." "Always," I said, my throat tight. "Even if Mom says not to?" That one stopped me cold. "What do you mean, buddy?" He looked toward the door. Nothing. Just wondering. After he drifted off, I sat in the hallway listening to the quiet hum of the house I thought was safe. Every picture on the wall, every piece of furniture, bought with a life she was now trying to cash in. And for the first time in my entire career, I realized I was the case. Lauren wasn't just cheating on me. She was erasing me, one forged document, one calculated lie at a time. So I decided, if she was going to play dirty, I'd play smarter. I called Frank the next morning. She wants to set up a trap, I told him. Fine, let her. But when it closes, she's the one who's not walking out. The text came on a Saturday morning. Taking Noah to the park. Need some mom and son time. Be back by 3. It seemed innocent enough. But I knew better by then. Lauren hadn't spent a real day alone with Noah in months. Her mom time usually meant she dropped him at her mother's house and disappeared for hours. I checked the family locator app just to be sure. Noah's phone pinged from Riverside Park in Cambridge. Stationary. Nothing weird. But by 3:30, I still hadn't heard from her. I texted. No reply. At 4 o'clock, I called straight to voicemail. The signal had moved. Not toward home. Not toward her mother's. It was headed east. Into the abandoned shipping district by the Charles River. A wasteland of old warehouses and graffiti-covered docks. My stomach dropped. I knew that area. I'd seen it in Frank's photos. One of Victor's fight locations. I jumped in my car and followed the GPS ping. The closer I got, the clearer it became. This wasn't a park trip. This was a setup. I called 911. My son's been taken, I said. He's inside an abandoned warehouse near Riverview Docks. I think he's in danger. The dispatcher promised units were on the way. ETA 12 minutes. I couldn't wait 12 minutes. When I got there, Noah's signal showed inside the largest warehouse, a 3-story brick shell. I left my car running and went in through a side door that hung slightly open. The inside was dark and silent except for the occasional creak of metal. The smell of fuel was strong. My flashlight caught the shine of liquid across the floor. Gasoline. Then, from the shadows, I heard him. Noah. He was curled up against the far wall, clutching his stuffed shark, eyes wide. His face was smeared with soot. Daddy, he cried. Please, we have to go. He said you'd come. He said you'd burn like the others. The others. I knelt trying to pull him up. What others, Noah? What are you talking about? But before he could answer, footsteps echoed above us on the catwalk. Right on cue, a man's voice said. Victor. He stepped into the light, tall, smirking, a lighter in one hand. And behind him, Lauren, dressed to kill, literally. Lauren, I said, my voice shaking. What the hell are you doing? Noah's right here. She didn't even glance at our son. This isn't personal, Ethan. I'm done living small. Victor gives me what you never could. Freedom, excitement, power. Money, I said bitterly. She smiled. That too. Victor tilted the lighter, its small flame dancing in the air. You were supposed to die quietly, he said. Office fire, car accident. Something tragic but believable. But you're too damn paranoid. So now we make it quick. I pulled Noah close. You don't have to do this, I told them. The police are already on the way. Victor grinned. Then let's make this show worth watching. He dropped the lighter. The flames raced toward us, roaring like a living thing. I bolted for the exit, Noah screaming in my arms. The explosion hit a second later, an eruption of heat and force that threw me to the pavement outside. I rolled over, coughing, my shoulder shredded with shrapnel, blood dripping down my side. Noah was alive, shaking but alive. Through the smoke, I saw them, Victor and Lauren, slipping out through a side door, hands clasped, faces calm. Sirens blared. My vision tunneled. The last thing I heard before blacking out was Noah's voice, trembling. Daddy, don't die. Please don't die. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with my arm in a sling, chest bandaged tight, and the dull throb of morphine barely keeping the pain at bay. For a moment, I couldn't remember what happened. Then I saw Noah sitting in a chair beside the bed, clutching his stuffed shark. His eyes were puffy from crying. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. He looked up, but he didn't smile. Just said quietly, "Mom said you got angry and made the fire." It hit like a gut punch. Before I could ask, the door opened and my mother, Isabel, walked in. 62, retired prosecutor. Sharp as ever, face hard as carved stone. "Don't speak," she said, shutting the door behind her. "You need to listen first." She sat down beside me. "Lauren filed for divorce this morning. Restraining order 2. She's claiming you were abusive, that you staged the explosion to frame her, and that Noah is terrified of you." I just stared at her. That's insane. "She tried to." "I know," she cut in, voice low but steady. "But she's got evidence. Or what looks like it. Security footage showing you entering the warehouse alone. Texts from your phone threatening Victor. A gas can with your fingerprints found at the scene." "She forged it all," I said, my heart racing. "She and Victor, they set me up." "She's already convincing people you snapped," Isabel said. "The cops, the lawyers, even some of your colleagues. She's painting herself as the terrified wife who was trying to leave an unstable husband." Couldn't breathe. Then she leaned in, her voice turning cold. "We're not going to let her win." Detective Nate Carver came later that afternoon. Mid-40s, tired eyes, polite but skeptical. He asked questions in that slow, methodical tone I'd used on witnesses when I worked fraud cases. "I need to tell you," he said. "Your wife's lawyer is saying you orchestrated this entire thing, that you've been following her, tracking her phone, hiring people to spy on her." "I hired a private investigator because I knew she was cheating and planning something worse," I said. "Can you prove that?" I looked away. Frank's reports were encrypted and stored on my office server, my work computer that was now probably seized. Carver studied me for a long moment. "Off the record," he said quietly, "I don't think you're lying. But right now, she's got the narrative and you've got nothing but your word. That's a bad place to be." After he left, Frank came in through the side door like he owned the place. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "She's got lawyers lining up for her," he said. "Her boyfriend's disappeared. The cops think he's out of state. They can't pin him to anything yet." I clenched my fist. "Then we make them both visible. We find his operation, expose everything. She wants to destroy me with lies. I'll bury her with truth." Frank smirked. "Now you're talking like me." That night I couldn't sleep. The morphine wore off, leaving the pain raw and sharp. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flames, the way Lauren didn't even look at our son. She wasn't afraid of losing Noah. She was planning to use him again. When I finally spoke, my voice was low, steady, the same voice I used when building a case I knew I'd win. "Frank," I said, "we find her partner. We find Victor. And then we take everything, his money, his people, his empire. We turn them against each other. And when she's standing alone, I'll make her confess." Frank nodded slowly. "That's a dangerous game, Ethan." "I know," I said, staring out the window at the city lights. "But she forgot something important." "What's that?" "I built my career finding the lies people hide in numbers. She built hers on hiding bodies behind them." Frank's research led us to Carter Vance, Victor's former business partner. They'd run the underground fights together until something went sideways. Money, ego, betrayal, no one knew for sure. Frank found him tending bar in a dive off the Boston Harbor, bitter and broke. When I met him, Carter's eyes were tired but sharp. "Victor Moretti?" he said, spitting the name out like poison. "That bastard owes me everything. What's this about?" "It's about taking him down," I told him, "and everyone who helped him." For 3 hours, Carter told me everything. Fight locations, corrupt cops, the money flow, even the names of the doctors patching up fighters off the books. Then he dropped the bomb. Victor kept video records of every fight, every illegal bet, every deal. A leverage archive. "He calls it his insurance policy," Carter said. "You find that, you own him." Frank grinned. Where does he keep it? Carter shrugged. Only two people know, Victor and his tech guy. Some computer nerd named Diego Alvarez. Works nights. Keeps his sister's medical bills paid with Victor's hush money. I felt a pulse of anger. Then we find him. 2 days later, I sat across from Diego in a parking garage. He looked terrified. I don't know anything, he said, glancing around. I'm not here to hurt you, I told him. I just want what Victor's been hiding. You help me, I'll pay your sister's medical bills for a year and get you federal protection. You have my word. Took another minute, but desperation won out. He gave me the codes, the storage address, everything. Inside the storage unit, we found it all: digital files, hard drives, stacks of cash, even blood-stained items taken from dead fighters like trophies. Frank spent all night duplicating everything. We had Victor by the throat. And with those files, we could drag Lauren down, too. But when I got home the next morning, there was something waiting that changed everything again. An envelope. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a note in a child's handwriting. Mom said not to tell you, but I don't like secrets anymore. Noah, my hands were shaking when I plugged it in. It was a video. Shaky, handheld footage, like something filmed on a phone left recording by accident. Lauren's voice came first. Calm. Cold. He needs to see it, she said. Then Victor's voice. You sure? He's just a kid. He has to understand what happens when you cross us. The camera turned and I saw Noah, my little boy, maybe 5 years old, standing in that same warehouse where the fights were held. There was blood on the floor, a man groaning nearby, beaten half to death. Noah's eyes were wide and wet, his small hands covering his ears. Lauren knelt beside him. See, honey? This is what happens when people don't listen. I felt sick. The timestamp said 2 years ago. She'd been bringing him there long before any of this started. Before the affair. Before the insurance. Lauren hadn't just cheated or plotted murder. She'd been conditioning our son. Using fear to keep him quiet. I sat in silence for a long time. Then I looked at Frank. We're not just taking them down for what they did to me, I said. We're doing it for Noah. For what she made him see. Frank's expression hardened. Then let's burn them with their own evidence. I always thought betrayal had a motive you could understand. Money, lust, boredom. Something human. Something you could point to and say, that's why. Lauren's reason wasn't human. It was arithmetic. Cold, clinical, and ugly as bone. The truth came out in pieces. Cash-stuffed envelopes, bank transfers traced to offshore shells, Victor's video archives, and, finally, Lauren's own voice on a recording she thought nobody would ever hear. I found it tucked on a backup drive Diego had given me. A clip of her on a late-night call in a hotel room 6 months before the warehouse. She wasn't whispering. She was planning. Calm, precise, like she was outlining a project budget. Listen, she said. If we stage it right, it's clean. For millions split 3 ways, maybe more if we manipulate the policies. Victor covers the logistics. You sign what needs signing, I'll take care of the forgery. Noah stays alive, useful to us later. If he sees his father die, he stays loyal to me because I'll be the one who saves him. He becomes a tool, not a weakness. When I heard that, something in me froze. Tool. Not a person. Not my son. Not anything human at all. Over the next week, we pulled everything apart. I watched investments lined up like chess moves. Lauren had emptied accounts, moved money into anonymous trusts, bought plane tickets under fake names. She set up shell companies that bought small hospitality businesses where Victor's people laundered cash. The policies, 3 in 6 months, 2 forged signatures, weren't insurance. They were instruments, the final equations in a ledger she'd been balancing for months. I wanted to believe there was some twisted affection, an affair that had hardened into cruelty. But the documents showed something worse. She'd spent years learning how to codify people. Categorize them by liability, market value, and emotional return. To her, relationships were spreadsheets. Children were liabilities you either monetize, hide, or weaponize. I'd been a risk, a line item dragging down potential gains. Removing me was simple math. The only variable was the cost of keeping Noah alive and useful. The recording that sealed it wasn't a confession. It was a negotiation. Her voice measured, efficient. Noah can't be exposed to everything. He needs limits. Fears are training. He has to witness enough to understand consequence, but not so much he breaks. We keep him dependent on me. Fear ties him. That way, if anything happens, he doesn't blame me. He needs me to survive. He'll learn his place. I replayed that line until it sounded like a verdict. She hadn't been scared of us losing everything. She was terrified of being ordinary, of the slow, invisible death of ambition that comes from PDA schedules and mortgage payments and pediatrician visits. Victor gave her a measure of danger and influence she'd never had. With him, she could monetize fear and sell power to other men who paid for violence like a luxury good. The part that hit me the hardest was how unremarkable her ruthlessness felt to her. This was a plan. Career pivot. She taught herself to disassociate the human consequences because they were messy, and messy things interfered with projections. She had mapped outcomes the way I used to map audits, expected value, variance, contingency plans. Her voice on that file wasn't cold because she was heartless. It was cold because she had learned to remove heart from the equation altogether. When I confronted Frank with the recordings, his jaw went white. "This is textbook sociopathy," he said. "Only she's dressed it up in contracts and ledgers." There was no redemption in that realization. There was only dread, the kind that settles in your bones when you see someone you loved reduce your child to a foothold. I had been fighting fraud my whole life. I'd always thought the moral center was obvious. Deception is wrong because it takes something that isn't yours. But what Lauren did was worse. She commodified the people I loved, then tried to sell me the receipt. Understanding her motive didn't make me feel clever. It made me feel hunted. It clarified the stakes in the most terrifying way. This wasn't about a moment of madness or a heat of the affair mistake. It was a long, rational plan to restructure our lives into profit, to excise me from the ledger and repurpose my son as collateral. That's when I knew the only language Lauren and Victor would respond to was evidence and ruin. I picked up the phone. "We go public everything," I told Frank. "No leaks. Full package to the authorities. Video, ledgers, transfers. We don't stop until they can't breathe." Frank nodded, eyes hard. "We burn the ledger." And for the first time since the warehouse, I allowed myself a cold thought that felt like justice. Not violence. Not an eye for an eye. Documentation. The thing she respected more than love, facts, would be her undoing. I had always thought revenge would feel like fire, hot and immediate. Planning it like a case file made it feel colder, surgical. I learned to love that cold. It let me breathe. It let me be smarter than they were. We did it by the book because the book is what broke them. Frank, Carter, Diego, and the two federal agents who finally believed me, Agent Thornton and Detective Carver, worked like a jury I'd assembled. We handed over Victor's entire ledger. Fight tapes, transfer records, offshore shells, the hotel bills with Lauren's card, the forged policy forms. We gave them the video my son had secretly recorded. We gave them every obscene little proof that showed what Victor's ring was. A parasite that fed on fear and men with money. The FBI moved like a rolling thunder. The raid at the mill was clean and brutal. I watched the feed in a conference room with a badge on a lanyard I didn't earn. Heart calmed only because I'd planned for this moment so long. They arrested Victor in the center ring, cuffed him while the crowd splintered and testified. They took Lauren in a separate sweep. She was shocked at first, then furious. Then something like calculation returned to her face when the agents read her the charges. What I remember most from those days wasn't the arrest photos or the headlines. It was Noah in the courthouse hallway the first time we walked out together after a hearing. He clutched his shark like it was talisman. He looked at me the way kids look at firefighters after a storm. Relief, confusion, tiny sparks of something like trust. He didn't know the legalese, the immunity deals, the witnesses flipped, or the grafted confessions. He only knew he wasn't being used anymore. Lauren's lawyer tried every angle. Coerced testimony, entrapment, claims about my obsession. The usual pile of gaslighting that cheaters and criminals try to hide behind. But the videos were explicit. The ledgers were messy with cash. and a dozen men who'd lost everything begged for mercy by trading truth. Some did it because they were scared. Some did it because they'd been busted. All of them corroborated the same thing. Victor ran a ring. Lauren helped run the books. The policies were part of a plan. The forensic accountants on the case, my old language, tore the shell companies apart and showed how money had flowed straight into Lauren's accounts under aliases. The custody hearing was the other battlefield. It should have been simple. My son with me, the mother who'd used him as leverage stripped of rights, but courts like complexity. Experts fought over what a child remembers, what leads to PTSD, what's best for a kid who'd seen a man beaten and a house explode. I had Dr. Omar Marshall's reports and the video Noah recorded. I had every piece of paper that showed Lauren's priorities. In the end, the judge looked at me and then at Noah and said slowly, "Children aren't property. They're people. This court must protect this child. Full legal custody, sole guardian, with visitation rights for the mother terminated." I felt that sentence like a bell. Noah's cry when he hugged me in the parking lot afterward was the sound that erased months of poison. Victor didn't survive long in detention. He'd made enemies in cages where pride and muscle mean everything. A brawl from a man who had nothing left ended in a concrete slap that the doctors called an accident. I didn't cheer. I didn't feel victorious in that way. If anything, his death was a hollow punctuation mark. I'd wanted justice, not a courtroom death. Still, it closed a door. Lauren took a plea. She got 15 years with parole possible after 10. The judge read out the part about parental rights and watched her face go blank. Some people have a look the first time consequences are real. It's not remorse. It's recognition that the ledger has a bottom line and it's a number you can't manipulate. I didn't dance in that courtroom. I sat with Noah and let the relief wash over me, then let it pass. There was work to do. Therapy, school reintegration, nights where he woke screaming. But those were honest things, not plots. What I built afterward was small. A teaching gig that let me be home. Cheaper rent in a neighborhood that didn't smell like old smoke. Weekend Lego wars on a thrifted rug. The law did its part. Evidence did its part. The rest was slow. Being present, answering questions honestly, letting a kid relearn safety in the smallest ways. People ask if I'm sorry for how it unfolded, for the ways I manipulated people to get what I needed. I tell them no, because the alternative was letting them finish what they'd started. Would I do it again? I would. I'd do it 1,000 times if the cost was my son's future. Sometimes, late at night when Noah sleeps across the room and I can hear the even rhythm of him breathing, I think about Lauren, about the ledger, the spreadsheets, the arithmetic that turned a person into a line item. I feel anger and something like pity. Most of all, I feel tired in a good way, the exhaustion that comes from hard labor that actually matters. Revenge wasn't fireworks. It was paperwork and patience and the slow, terrible satisfaction of watching someone else's numbers finally fail. In the end, the thing that saved us wasn't a lighter in a warehouse. It was my ability to see a pattern and to stick to it until the rest of the world could see it too. No one gets to rewrite your ledger for you. I just reclaimed mine. And if anyone asks Noah who his real superhero was, he'll probably say, "Dad." I'll let him have that. After everything, being the guy who keeps the shark tucked under his pillow feels like the best kind of victory, quiet, ridiculous, and utterly complete.